Don't say goodnight at the zoo after midnight. The zoo had always been a local treasure, built in 1932, nestled deep in the heart of Hollow Glen Woods. It was old, sure, and some of the cages creaked like haunted bird cages, but it had charm. Or at least it used to. Now it just felt watched. Jamie, Leo, Mira, Callum, and Raya, all 17, all thrill-seekers, were the kind of kids who shared ghost videos and dared each other to sneak into abandoned houses. They were intrigued by the urban legend of Hollow Glen Zoo and its so-called goodnight curse. People say the animals whisper your name after midnight, Mira told the group as they huddled in hoodies near the north fence. Her breath fogged the air. If you say goodnight after midnight, they remember you. Leo laughed. What do they do? Send you a thank you card? No, said Jamie. They come for you. A silence followed. Even Leo shifted uneasily. The plan was simple. Sneak in at 11:30 p.m., explore the grounds, maybe film something creepy for their YouTube channel, and be gone by 12:15. Just enough to say they did it. They hadn't expected the lights to still be on inside. As they hopped the fence and landed on the gravel paths, something was off. All the cages were dark, but the street lamps glowed with a strange, bluish hue, like moonlight underwater. The gift shop lights flickered, and the distant carousel, long broken, spun slowly in silence. No wind, no power, and yet it turned. Guys, do you feel that? Callum whispered. They all did. A pressure in the air, like the moment before a thunderstorm, when your skin tingles and your ears pop. It pressed against them, low and heavy, and carried a faint sound, like whispering. Barely audible. Not quite human. They walked through the reptile house, their flashlights skimming empty tanks. No snakes. No lizards. Just glass, fogged and cracked. In the back, a terrarium door swung open. Maybe they moved them? Jamie offered weakly. In the middle of the night? Raya asked, narrowing her eyes. No staff here. In the aviary, feathers coated the floor, bright blue and red ones, from parrots and macaws, but no birds. Not a single chirp. Just the creak of a ceiling fan turning too slowly. Time was passing strangely. When Jamie checked his watch, it read 11:47. But when Mira checked her phone, it said 12:01. Which is it? Leo asked, suddenly irritated. Let's not screw around. But before anyone could answer, a voice, soft, lilting, childlike, whispered from the intercom system. Say goodnight, please. They froze. Did that sound like a little girl to anyone else? Raya asked, gripping Myra's arm. The lights above them dimmed. And then the lion's cage roared to life, not with a lion's cry, but a deep, guttural gurgle that made their stomachs turn. They turned as one and sprinted toward the central plaza, where the zoo map was mounted on a giant stone display. But the map had changed. The familiar sections, petting zoo, monkey trails, night creatures, were gone. Replaced. Now the signs read, the Forgotten Pens, the Hall of Sleeping Eyes, the Midnight Ring. What is this? Callum whispered, pale and trembling. They tried retracing their steps. The fence they'd climbed was no longer there. Just a never-ending stretch of unfamiliar pathways and walls they didn't remember. The sky above seemed wrong, not dark, not cloudy, but curved, like they were inside a massive dome. Jamie stopped. His voice cracked. Guys, I don't think we're in the real zoo anymore. From the shadows, something shuffled, heavy, dragging feet. Then a clink, like metal claws scraping stone. Mira raised her flashlight toward the carousel. It was still spinning. Only now, something rode the horses. Dark shapes, tall, thin, eyes like burning coals, swaying back and forth with the rhythm of the music that shouldn't be playing. And from above, a speaker crackled once more. Don't say goodnight. We're not done playing yet. The group turned and ran, but the paths twisted behind them, changing direction as they moved, like the zoo itself was alive. Somewhere an animal howled. Somewhere a child laughed. And the clock struck 12:07 a.m. They had broken the rule. They had said goodnight. And now the zoo remembered. The 5 teens, Jamie, Mira, Leo, Callum, and Raya, sprinted blindly through the twisting zoo paths, breathing hard, hearts pounding like war drums. Every turn betrayed them. The exits were gone. The fences had moved. Even the trees lining the paths had shifted, their bark slick with some dark, oozing sap that hadn't been there before. Mira clutched her phone, its flashlight flickering. My GPS isn't working. It's just static. Jamie stopped to catch his breath, near a tall archway. The carved wooden sign above it read, "The Hall of Sleeping Eyes." "Guys," he wheezed. "This wasn't on the map before. We've circled twice. It's the only way forward." Leo narrowed his eyes. "You want us to walk into something called that?" Callum, still gripping a rolled-up hoodie like a weapon, looked up. "What choice do we have?" The archway opened into a dim hallway flanked by enclosures. The walls were stone, cold and damp, and the air smelled of mildew, iron and something else, like rotting flowers. One by one, they stepped inside. The path was lit only by weak lanterns, swaying gently though there was no wind. Each enclosure had a brass plate nailed to it, reading names like Patient 8A, the gazer; Patient 3C, the listener; Patient 5B, the dream eater. Inside the cages were no animals, no people, only our eyes, hundreds of them, lining the walls, the ceilings, embedded into the surfaces like wet marbles. Some blinked, some bled, all followed them as they walked. Raya gasped and pointed to a mural on the far wall, a massive painting depicting the zoo, but in chaos. Creatures stalked the grounds, devouring guests. Children screamed while shadowy zookeepers in crimson coats looked on, smiling. In the center of the mural stood a figure, tall, faceless, wearing an antique brass name tag that read, "Curator Knox." Beneath the painting, in scrawled red ink, were the words, "All who say goodnight must dream with us forever." Jamie shivered. This isn't a zoo anymore. It's some kind of shrine. Suddenly, all the lanterns blew out at once. Darkness, inhuman whispers, filled the hall. Mira screamed, backing into Callum. Something cold brushed her arm. A wet breath touched her ear. I heard that one say goodnight. The hallway pulsed like a living throat, and then all the eyes snapped shut in unison. A door appeared at the far end, glowing faintly. They bolted through it. The next room was even stranger, shaped like a massive amphitheater lined with rows of empty benches. In the center, a cage suspended by chains. And in the cage a child, no older than 7, in a tattered yellow dress, swaying slightly. Her face was hidden behind a papier-mâché animal mask, half lion, half owl. She lifted her head when she heard them. "Are you awake?" she asked softly. Mira stepped forward, confused. Who are you?" "I was just like you. I came to the zoo on a dare. Said goodnight." The mask tilted. "They didn't like that." Leo's fists clenched. "Who didn't?" "The animals who dream," the child replied. "The ones who sleep beneath the zoo. They wake when the words are spoken." Jamie grabbed a thick chain to try and open the cage. "We have to get her out." "No," she shrieked. "They'll know. They always know." Too late. A loud clang rang out, like an enormous bell struck deep underground. All the lights dimmed to red. The room rumbled. Above them, a mural began bleeding. Then the floor split, a perfect circle opening like an eye. The cage dropped into the abyss with a snap. The girl didn't scream. She only whispered as she fell, "Don't forget to close your eyes." The hole sealed itself instantly. They fled again, this time through a glass tunnel that led to the old aquarium section. Shattered tanks lined the walkway. Water ran in thin, snake-like streams across the floor. From within the largest tank, broken from the top, a long, black tendril slapped against the glass. Leo backed away. "I'm done. This place is cursed. We need to find something, anything, that still makes sense." Then, a voice echoed from the tank's intercom system. A familiar voice. Jamie's. "Hey, you guys hearing this? I think we should head to the aviary first. It's still early." They all froze. Jamie turned white. That's from earlier. From my phone. When we first got in." Callum whispered. "They're listening. They're remembering." Raya spotted a staff door ahead labeled Curator's Office, staff only. She didn't wait. She kicked it open. Inside, the office was pristine, untouched by dust or decay. On the walls hung newspaper clippings. "Boy disappears at Hollow Glen Zoo. Only shoe found in Tiger Pit." Staff report hearing voices from drain pipes. Zoo denies claims. Hollow Glen, zoo to close permanently following tragedy. Then one final headline, pinned by a red tack. Zookeeper's daughter last seen after midnight, said goodnight before vanishing. The girl in the picture was the one from the cage. Jamie's voice trembled. They keep the ones who say it. Suddenly, the air grew cold again. All 5 of their names whispered through the room, from the vents, from the cracks in the walls, from the blood in their ears. Jamie, Mira, Callum, Leo, Raya. Say it again. The walls around them began to rot. The floor peeled like old wallpaper, revealing pulsing red veins beneath. They ran. They ran until their lungs burned, their legs barely moving beneath them. Behind them, the curator's office groaned like it was sinking into the ground, the lights above them stuttering, glitching, like the very fabric of the zoo was breaking apart. Jamie led them through another arched doorway, this one so overgrown with ivy and moss it barely looked real. A rusted sign hung at a crooked angle. The Forgotten Pens, staff restricted. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of metal and mildew. The walls were concrete, peeling and damp, and the floor sloped downward in a way that made them feel like they were descending into a bunker or a tomb. "Where are we?" Raya whispered. Mira swept her flashlight across the walls. On one side were rows of small iron cages, each barely large enough for a dog. Some still had bones in them. Not animal bones. Small. Human. Leo's face twisted in disgust. This place isn't just abandoned. It was hidden. Someone didn't want people to find it. Suddenly, a speaker crackled to life above them, playing a soft, scratchy lullaby. The same one from the carousel. Then a voice. "Sleep tight, little beasts, no more biting after nightfall." They all froze. That wasn't a recording. That was live. Raya moved to the far corner of the room where she noticed a twisted iron gate with a heavy lock. The gate had a plaque on it, one word burned into rusted steel. Containment. What the hell were they keeping back there? Callum asked. Jamie picked up a piece of rebar. Only one way to find out. He smashed the lock, it broke with a brittle snap, and they slowly pulled the gate open. The hallway beyond it was silent. No more pipes. No whispering. No music. Only rows of empty pens, and in the last one a door. Wooden. Ancient. Painted red, with tiny bone charms nailed around the frame like a warning. Mira stepped forward. "Do you hear that?" Everyone listened. Yes. A heartbeat. Faint but real. Coming from the other side of the door. Jamie pushed it open. The room beyond looked like a chapel. A curved ceiling. Old wooden pews. Candles, fresh, burning with black flame. At the far end stood an altar, and on it, a zookeeper's uniform. Empty. Standing upright. It was stitched together from animal hides, buttons made from teeth, its brass name tag glinting faintly. Curator knocks. Suddenly, the candles flared. The door slammed shut, and the air filled with something thick. Not smoke, memory. They could all feel it, pushing into their heads. A girl's voice. He took the ones who said goodnight. He stitched them together, called them his collection. He said it wasn't cruelty. He said it was love. Jamie staggered backward. The curator, he's not dead. He is the zoo. The walls around them shifted, revealing paintings underneath. Not murals. Portraits. Each one of a child, wide-eyed, smiling. But those weren't smiles. They were stitched onto their faces. You could see the thread, the swollen skin. Callum screamed, "We have to get out." But the floor dropped beneath him. He vanished into darkness. "Callum!" Mira cried. Then the curator's voice echoed from the uniform, hollow, soft, amused. "One down. 4 to go." Jamie grabbed Myra's hand, yanked her toward the side wall where a maintenance hatch had broken open. He pulled them inside, Leo and Raya crawling behind. They slid down a narrow service tunnel, dropping into the zoo's maintenance level. It was pitch black. Their flashlights flickered like dying stars. Here, there were no signs, no maps, only massive pipes that pulsed like arteries, and dripping vents that whispered in children's voices. Raya shivered. He's feeding off the zoo. Or it's feeding off him. I don't even know anymore. Leo leaned against the wall, his voice trembling. Callum's gone. He's really gone. Mira turned to Jamie. Where's the center of this place? The heart. There has to be one. Jamie nodded slowly. The dream pool. I read about it in that old newspaper clipping. It was supposed to be an art installation. A reflective pond. But it's in the oldest part of the zoo. Before the renovations. Before it was ever public. Leo looked up. That's where we end this. They followed the dripping tunnels for what felt like hours. Time meant nothing down there. At one point, Mira glanced at her phone. It read, midnight, then glitched to 25:66, then shut off entirely. When they reached the dream pool, it wasn't what they expected. It wasn't a pond. It was an eye. A massive, wet, silver eye embedded in the floor. It blinked slowly. Once. Then again. Around it were dozens of stone statues. Not animals. Children. All posed mid-run, mid-scream. Realistic in the most grotesque way. Jamie whispered, "These aren't statues. These are the ones who didn't escape." The eye blinked again, and the curator's voice surrounded them. "Say it just once more. Give yourselves to the dream." Mira shouted, "We're not yours." Then Raya took a deep breath. "I have an idea." She stepped toward the pool and knelt. The curator purred, "Yes." And she whispered, "Good night." The eye opened fully, and Raya leapt in. Raya expected darkness. Instead, she fell into light. Not the comforting kind. No, this was raw, unfiltered, like staring at the sun through a cracked lens. Her body wasn't falling, not in the traditional sense. She was slipping, as if thought and flesh were no longer separate. Colors bled into sounds. Sounds echoed as smells. Her scream had the texture of velvet. Then stillness. Raya landed without impact, standing suddenly in a zoo that was both familiar and wrong. It looked pristine. Bright morning sun, clean enclosures, smiling families, but their faces were blurred. Too smooth. Too identical. As if they had been painted on and the paint hadn't dried. She walked forward, heart thudding, and passed by an exhibit labeled, "Children who did not obey." Inside were life-size mannequins. Children frozen in screams, clutching stuffed toys, one clutching a smartphone mid-text. A sign read, "Remember, obedience is the first step to becoming beloved." Raya swallowed hard. This isn't the real zoo. This is his dream of it. "Correct," said a voice beside her. She turned and gasped. It was Callum, but not quite. He looked aged, eyes sunken, skin pale and waxy. His expression was calm, almost peaceful, but there was something hollow behind his gaze. "Callum," she asked softly. He smiled. "I'm awake now. In here we all are." She reached for him. He stepped back. "No touching. Not unless you want to stay." "Stay." Callum pointed to the carousel in the center of the dream zoo. It spun in slow motion, each of its animal seats occupied by someone she recognized, classmates, local kids from the news, people listed as missing. Their eyes were open, their mouths sewn shut. "The curator keeps them here," Callum said. "Each of us is part of the zoo now. A keeper of the rules. He says we must serve or be served." Raya clenched her fists. "Where is he?" Callum turned and pointed toward a long hallway lit by flickering lanterns. A sign above it read, "Staff sleeping quarters. Do not enter." She stepped toward it. Callum grabbed her wrist. "If you see the cages, don't look inside. If you hear your name, don't answer." "Why?" His voice dropped. "Because what's inside those cages are not animals. They're the pieces of people who disobeyed, waiting to be stitched into something useful." Raya pulled away and ran. The hallway was impossibly long. Each step echoed. The walls here were not walls at all, they were glass. Behind them, shapes moved, silent and twitching. The cages. She did not look, even as voices called to her in her mother's tone. Her father's whisper. Even Myra's sobbing. She did not look. Eventually, the hall narrowed until it ended in a single wooden door. A brass plate read, "Curator knocks. Do not disturb between midnight and 3 a.m." She pushed the door open. Inside, the room was cavernous and dim, lit only by a single lantern swaying from the ceiling. Beneath it sat the curator, or what was left of him. His skin was a patchwork of hides, stitched, stapled, tied together with black thread. His face was covered by a porcelain mask, painted with the permanent grin of a zoo mascot. In his hands, he held a child-sized mannequin. He was gently sewing its mouth shut with a long, silver needle. He didn't look up. "I wonder when you'd come," he said, voice like silk dragged across glass. Raya stepped forward. "Let them go." The curator's head tilted. "Why? They're safe here. Preserved. Loved. No one forgets them. In the real world, they were just fading, dying without anyone noticing. But here, they are mine. Forever." Raya clenched her fists. "You took them. You trapped them in your nightmare." "No," he said calmly. "They said goodnight. That was their choice." He gestured toward the wall behind him. Raya turned and gasped. It was covered in photographs. Hundreds, maybe thousands, each showing a child at bedtime. Some brushing their teeth. Some hugging parents. Each one with a timestamp. 11:59 p.m. Each followed by the same note. "Say goodnight to the zoo." Raya shook her head. "That's not a contract. That's not a ritual." The curator stood slowly, towering over her. "It is now. Belief makes it real. The more who say it, the stronger this place becomes." She looked down. In her hand, she was holding something she hadn't noticed before. A matchbook. Dream pool maintenance access. Use in case of system failure. She blinked, then smiled. "You made a mistake," Raya whispered. "You let me fall into your dream, and you forgot that every dreamer can wake up." She struck the match. The flame flared, pure white. The curator screamed. Outside the dream, in the maintenance tunnels, Jamie, Mira, and Leo screamed as the walls began to crack. The eye in the dream pool started to bleed light, silver and furious. Suddenly, Raya shot out of it, soaking wet, barely breathing, but alive, and in her hand a single porcelain shard, the faceplate of the curator's mask. They pulled her to safety as the eye convulsed, then collapsed inward. The statues around them crumbled. The walls turned to dust. The curator's voice echoed once more. "You can leave the zoo, but it never truly leaves you." Then silence. The zoo was gone. The sun rose over the burned remains of the midnight zoo. At least, that's what they told themselves. The eye in the dream pool had collapsed, the curator's realm torn at the seams by Raya's defiance. The tunnels fell silent. No statues moved. The zoo, in all its impossible design, was gone. But something still lingered. Jamie noticed it first. A yellow ticket stub appeared in his pocket while he was showering. The stub was crisp warm, like it had just been printed. It read, "Admit 1, Whispering Zoo Midnight Showing. Final Ride, the Memory Carousel." He stared at it for a long time, then flushed it down the toilet. It was back in his pocket by dinner. Mira had stopped sleeping. Every time she blinked for too long, she heard music. That haunting carousel tune, slow, sweet, and rotting beneath the melody. Once, during class, she glanced out the window and saw a shadow of a giraffe slowly dragging its hose across the school lawn. Its eyes were human. No one else saw it. As for Raya, she dreamed every night. Not of the curator. No, he was gone, scattered in the winds of the broken dream. But of the children left behind. Their mouths unsewn, their eyes wide. They did not scream. They whispered. "The zoo remembers. We said goodnight. So did you." She woke each time clutching her chest, the phantom pain of being sewn into something else still lingering. A week after the collapse, Leo vanished. No sign of a struggle. No note. His bedroom window wide open, and on his pillow, a golden zookeeper's badge. Carved into it were the words, "Promoted." The others didn't speak about it. They barely spoke at all. But Raya knew the zoo wasn't destroyed, only closed for renovations. Then came the invitations. Black envelopes slid under their doors. The paper inside was made of something soft and strangely warm. On it, embossed in silver ink, "We're reopening soon. Bring a friend. Say goodnight." The ink shifted when tilted. At one angle it read, "Come back." At another, "Oh, we come to you." One night, unable to take the silence, Jamie broke. He showed up at Raya's window, pale and shivering. "We should go back," he whispered, "just to see if it's really gone." She nearly slammed the window shut on him, but then she saw the desperation in his eyes. The carousel tune was playing faintly from his mouth, like it had become a second voice, humming from his lungs. They couldn't outrun this. only confront it. So they returned, back to the place the zoo had once stood, except now it wasn't ruins. It was a parking lot, freshly paved, clean, not a trace of tunnels, pools, or eldritch brick. But something shimmered in the corner of their vision. And when they stepped into the exact center of the lot, where the dream pool once was, the world blinked. And they were back, but not in the same zoo. This version was polished, gleaming, like the dream had rebuilt itself better. More deceptive, animatronic animals lined the entrance. Robotic birds chirped overhead. A billboard near the gate read, "Whispering Zoo, Midnight Park. Reopened and reimagined." Children walked alongside parents, but if you looked too closely, the parents had no eyes. Just skin stretched where the sockets should be. The kids didn't notice. Mira clutched Rai's arm. "It's evolving." They moved past the crowds unnoticed. This zoo wanted them inside. There were no gates to block them now. Instead, a new sign greeted them. Tonight's feature, the memory carousel. The carousel stood in the center again, but this time it spun fast, too fast. The faces on the riders blurred like melting wax. One by one, the trio approached. Their pockets grew heavier. Tickets. Unpunched. Waiting. "I think we have to ride it," Jamie said quietly. Raya said nothing, but she nodded. They stepped aboard. The moment they mounted the carousel beasts, lion, bear, and serpent, the world froze. No sound. No motion. Then darkness. Each of them was pulled inward. Raya awoke in her childhood bedroom. Everything perfect. Her parents downstairs. The smell of tea. Her cat curled at her feet. She should have felt safe, but the window reflected something behind her. A cage, with her inside. And on the walls, painted in blood, was a phrase. "If you say goodnight in a lie, you stay." Jamie found himself at a family barbecue. Except everyone was silent. Not frozen, just motionless. Their heads turned as he approached, and all their mouths opened to reveal zoo tickets. Hundreds of them, stuffed inside. "The zoo doesn't take prisoners," a voice said behind him. "It takes promises." Mira floated in space. Literal stars all around. Each star a whisper. Each whisper a child's name. She heard herself among them. Then Leo's. Then Callum's. Then her own. "We are the exhibit now," said a shadow behind her. "On display forever. Because we said goodnight." Back on the carousel, all three screamed. Together. And in that scream, something broke. The carousel cracked. The ride began to fall apart. Lights shattered. Music skipped. The sky turned red. And through the chaos he returned. The Curator. But he no longer wore a porcelain face. His new face was Leo's. And he smiled. "You can leave again," he said softly. "But you'll never be alone again." Then he pushed them off. They landed outside. Back in the parking lot. Morning sun. Birds chirping. Normal. Too normal. But this time, they were older. Years had passed. Myra's phone lit up. A missed call from her parents. Jamie looked at his arms. Tattoos he didn't remember. Raya stared at her reflection in a car window, and she was 25. They had escaped again. But time was the price. A breeze blew past. A single ticket fluttered in the air and landed on Raya's shoulder. She read it. This one was different. Not from the zoo. Just a blank card with one question. "Will you ever say goodnight again?" She looked at her friends. At the sky. Then crumpled the card. "No," she whispered.